One of the things that I take the most seriously now, and one of the things that are the most important to me right now, is that nobody knows how to debate. They don't know how to debate. We're entering this world, actually, we're probably really steeped in it, to be honest with you, where debate means who can shout the loudest, who can name call the most, who can, well, I know this author, well, I know that author, well, I know that, and then you just don't get anywhere, you're just throwing books at each other or whatever. And to me, not only is it just not pleasant to listen to, but it's detrimental to communication as humans, and it's also detrimental to progress. And so when you don't like something, you do your best to change it, right? Like, nobody wants to be the person who complains about the way things are and then never offers any ideas on how to fix things. And so basically what I'm going to do is give you all the notes that I wish people had given me 15 years ago when I first got involved in competitive professional debate. And I have skewed it, or that's not the right word, I've turned it to fit regular conversation. I'm not going to teach you how to internet debate. I'm not going to teach you how to Facebook debate. I'm not going to teach you how to, start a fight at Thanksgiving. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to keep those things from happening, right? And also be entertaining while we do it, right? So first I'm going to go down just kind of a list of the main bullet points, and then I'm going to circle back and talk a little bit more in depth about each one of those things. If at any point you want me to slow down, you want me to repeat myself, you have a question, please, I'm begging you, throw your hands in the air, because I really enjoy talking about this, and I know that I can go a mile a minute. It's not you, it's me. I can tell you that right now. So please feel like this is a space where you are completely and totally welcome to just put your hand in the air and ask a question, or ask me to go back over anything I've said, or ask for clarification, or, this might surprise you, argue with me. Bam! 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 Well, I should just reject it right in front of everybody. One of the number one ways we can learn is by arguing or negating or asking those questions. If I say something and you're like, I disagree, I've seen that work differently in my life. One, there's usually a very good reason why your specific example that you're reflecting on worked differently, and it's a teaching opportunity for me to explain that. Two, if I'm teaching you how to debate and I can't debate in front of you, don't trust me. Don't trust a word I say, right? Those people who say, do as I say, not as I do. No, don't do as I do either if I do it bad. So anyway, my name is Cindy. Please feel free at any point this week to come up and talk to me. I'd love to talk to you about anything that was discussed here. But let's just jump right in. So the first thing that I think is really important to convey is that, unfortunately, but fortunately, a really good debater never gets to see the fruit of their labor. You will not change somebody's mind in the moment. You just won't. And that's not being negative, that's just being honest and realistic. But that's not what we're supposed to do. And that's where so much of this has gotten lost recently, is it's like, no, I have to change this person's entire history, political opinion right here, right now. Well, then you're gonna fail. I'm sorry, it's just, even if you manage to do that, they're not gonna let you know, they're not gonna admit it, right? What you're doing and what you want to do and what you want to go in with the goal of doing is planting that seed, right? Planting that little seed, right? Whether it's politics, whether it's religion, whether it's social stuff, whether it could be about restaurants, it could be about movies. This is the kind of conversational debate you want to have and the skills you want to use when you have these debates, right? So you want to plant that seed. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. But when you go into it knowing already, ahead of time, that the goal is not to change their mind, you'll save. You'll save so much time and brain cells and anger. My parents hate to see me comment, right? Because we get nothing done in one conversation, so they think. But I've seen a lot of changes happen over the years that I'm proud of, right? Never say it, never talk about it, never take credit for it. But those are the kind of seeds you want to plant in people's minds, right? We're not talking about mind control. We're talking about letting them think, right? With us here at NaNoCon, a lot of what we're going to talk about this weekend is religion, right? And organized religion, whether it's Christianity, whether it's another kind. And I've heard so many stories go through my podcast, and people who are now friends of mine, is all it took was that one little prick of a thread to be popped, right? And then it started to unravel. It wasn't necessarily something someone said in that moment that was profound. It was, if what they said is true, and it seems reasonably true, then what does that mean for everything else I've been living through and hanging my hat on and branding myself with? Like, my whole personality has been those things. That's what we want to do. We want to present these ideas, we want to water that little seed, and we want to say, okay, feel free to come talk to me more later if you ever want to, right? And on that note, there is no such thing as winning a debate. There's just not. Even when you do, right? We've all had that conversation with somebody where we are clearly winning and they walk away going, I won that, right? How many times have we seen the exact same clip used on Fox News and on CNN, and both sides are being like, our guy destroyed the other guy, and it's the same clip, right? That's why the goal isn't to win, because even if you won, you didn't win, they won. God, I spent so many hours, just infuriating hours with people who like, I know that I won, like, why? If you go in trying to win, you're gonna be second. So that's why we just throw that out the window. Can you be correct? Yes. Will you win? No. Not only that, but a lot of times winning a debate is actually detrimental to the cause. I don't want to be the person who beats somebody. I want to be the person somebody's comfortable talking about these things with. Right? I don't want to be the person who attacks somebody and goes, I won, tell everyone. I want to be the person who's like, hey, you know what? This got intense, got heated. I really appreciate you. If you ever want to talk about it, please let me know. That's who you want to be. For whoever. Something that people don't take into consideration when they're posting online, when they're tweeting, when they're Redditing. The action of posting on Reddit, when they're, whatever it is that even if you're talking to one person, everyone that applies to now knows that you think that about them too. So when you post like anti-trans things, maybe it's just one trans creator you have a problem with. Guess what? That creator will never see that. You know who will see that? All the people in your life who now know they're not safe around you. If you've got a problem, like one of my favorites is, I don't dislike Obama because he's black. It's like, well then why is every insult you have about him because he's black? And what are you saying now to everyone in your life who is black? Same with women. I have had that talk with my own dad. My own dad, I have to be like, every time you call Hillary Clinton the C word, you're calling me the C word. When you talk about bitches, you're talking about me. How do you not see that with your eyeballs? But we need to also listen to that message too. When we're saying Christians do this and Christians do that, everyone who thought they were safe in your space no longer feels safe in that space. And now every good point you make from here on out, to them is going to be a bad point because you don't like people like them. You don't want anything to do with people like them. So that's why it's so important to learn how to communicate and how to talk to people, especially the people that we disagree with. Now, this is not me saying, put yourself in rooms with people who are not safe for you either. This is not me going out and being like, you know what, I'm going to get in the middle of that mob and I'm going to make a change. It's like, the KK is where? I'm going to go. No, don't, like, this is not me telling you. This is me saying, when you are engaged in a conversation by someone else, how to navigate that, whether you're ready for it or not. Sometimes you see it coming from a mile away. Sometimes it is 7 in the morning, you haven't had your coffee, but now you gotta have this coffee. Just me. I go home to my parents. Anyway. A question is an answer. I'm tired of people telling me what the rules of debate are. We're living in this time where it's like, oh, you answer my question with another question, and that doesn't you answer. What do you like? I just work here, right? A question is an answer. Not only legitimately, but it also gives you a moment to think about how you want to respond. So say, for example, somebody asks you a question, and you're like, oh, I'm not ready for that question yet. I need a moment to think. My way of responding to that is saying, that's a great question. What do you think? You know, when they're like, oh, so you're just saying you want everybody to have everything for free all the time. Is that what you're saying? It's like, oh, that's a great question. What do you think? What do you think about those things? What should we get for free, if anything, and what shouldn't we? You're like, well, I don't think we should get anything for free, right? And then it forces them to create points that now you have the brain power and like the attention span to respond to those points, right? When somebody gives you a general question like that, like an overall question, one, they're just trying to fling as much stuff on the wall as they possibly can to see what sticks, and then spread it all over the place, and then pretend like you lost because you didn't answer one of the things. But if you say, you know, that's such a general question, what do you think? You don't insult them, you say that's a great question, or that's a general question. How do you feel? Then they break it down into points on accident, right? They're like, well, everybody thinks college should be free, and I think this. And then everybody doesn't want to pay back their student loans, and I think that. And you're like, okay, now I can address student loans. I can address whatever. Maybe they talk about medical care. Maybe they talk about education. Maybe they go off on a tangent unrelated to what they just asked you. That's fine, you can address that. But that gives you a moment to think. Everybody thinks that you have to move fast. Speed doesn't matter. In fact, I don't know if you've ever seen anybody talk really slow and deliberate. It's kind of scary. It's good. Like my dad, he takes minutes to figure out what he's going to say, and sometimes those are the scariest minutes I've ever had to wait. Sometimes they're the ansiest minutes, like the number of times I'm just like, oh, like I just gotta wait, and then the minute you're ready to talk, you start talking again. Where we get mixed up and where we go wrong with debate is the person's coming at us like that and we're matching their energy like this. Do you want to match the energy of somebody you don't like very much? You disagree with? No. You're not going to do anything else they do, right? You don't hang out with the same people they do. You don't hang out in the same spaces they do. Why would you want to match the energy they have? Why not just make out one more thing that's different, right? But also, take time to think about it. It's not a tennis match. If they ask you a question and you want to take a couple minutes to think, and if they really want your answer, they'll let you, whether they like it or not. Now, if it's not about your answer and they're just trying to rapid fire all over the place, that also gives you your answer there. It's like, okay, clearly this is not a conversation, this is like you're showing off. This is a, oh, you memorized Andrew Tate, how wonderful, right? Ah, I see you have a TikTok, great. Just make that one more thing you have different. Take your time to think. Asking a question can be answered with a question. And if they say, don't respond to my question with a question, I say, don't tell me what to do. Yeah, and they're like, okay. And they stop. This controversial, might get kicked out of here for saying this. I don't care who you've read. I don't. I think about the scientific theory exactly 0 times a day. 0. Well, this philosopher said this. Okay, he's dead now. He's not saying much, is he? Right? It's like, well, so-and-so said this. Okay, then my uncle said this. You want to, like, let's go. Because then what you end up doing is, instead of having a beneficial conversation between two people, you have, well, I read this. Read this, well I read this, well I read this, and then you're just mad, and then you wonder why you wasted all your time. If somebody's like, well, I read this, do you know what that is? I say, you want to tell me? Oh, I know you want to tell me. And I let him tell me. And then we talk about that. It does not matter if you know the philosophies, or the historians, or the this, or the Occam's razors, or the whatever. I don't give a shit about any of that. I just know I've never seen Jesus. That's, you know what I mean? I've seen real things. I've not seen not real things. Well, what about germs? Have you ever been sick? I don't need to see it to believe it. You've never had diarrhea? Lucky you. You're allowed to respond in that way. You're allowed to say, okay, great. Anyone can publish anything. We can talk about books all day long. Now, if you have a book that is helpful to the discussion, for example, a friend of mine wrote a book called Why We Believe in Gods. It is a wonderful book. It's a quick read. It is just a phenomenal piece of literature. I bring it up in order to use what I read in that. I don't say, well, I read this philosopher, therefore I'm going to. I say, have you read this book? Let me tell you about it. Here's what I liked it. Here's how it applies to that conversation. Fantastic. Do that all you want, right? I think that's wonderful. I'm a little biased. It's a great book written by a great person, right? That's fine. But, we do these call-in shows, myself included, where people are like, well, this philosophy says, and you're like, okay. Well, I am so glad you can read. I think that's wonderful. But anyway, back to what we were talking about, reality. What's going on right here, right now? Right? And I've heard so many people say that they're intimidated to speak up, whether it's as agnostic atheists, whether it's in any other realm, because I haven't read this, I haven't read that. What if they've read this? What if they've read that? Then congratulate them. Like, that's great. That's totally fine. But what you know and what you feel counts, right? It counts. Okay, the Bible is a book. You know what else is a book? Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter. Abraham Lincoln was a real man too. So does that mean that's real? Don't answer that. Well, the Bible's got real people in it. So does Abraham Lincoln. Vampire. See what I'm going with that? Like, we can talk about fanfic all day long. But let's talk about the point at hand, the conversation we're having. So many of the ways that great opportunities die is because you're focused on the wrong things. You're focused on, they're going faster than me. I stammered. I don't know what to say. I'm just making stuff up now, because I gotta match their energy. I haven't read that thing. I don't want them to think I'm dumb. First of all, they already think you're dumb, so it's fine. That's how you got into this scenario to begin. It's helpful to think about that, right? Anything you know after that is just a surprise. Just, wow, shocking. Relax, right? And yeah, it's hard to say when a lot of these things are about topics you really care about people you really care about things that really matter, about things that are infuriating. I promise you, 2 days ago, I had a conversation with my own dad about what he thinks about voting for a pedophile. That was a weird conversation to have with the man that taught me to drive, right? But we have to have these conversations. We have to speak about these things. If we keep having these angry debates where it's like name calling and this, that, and nothing will ever change. And you guess what? My dad did not leave that conversation having changed. But I'm willing to bet he's thinking about it. I know he is, because I texted him asking me. Hey, it's me. You're going to see me in 2 weeks, so I guess we're done fighting. But, right? And consistency is important too. Right? Consistency. Every time you see that person, you're going to respond the same way. Right? They're going to poke, they're going to poke, they're going to poke. They want you to explode. They want you to freak out. They want you to get mad. They want you to name call, because that gives them whatever they want. Whether it's political, whether it's religious, whether it's roommates arguing, whether it's a relationship, it doesn't matter. This applies across the board, right? When you are the person who remains consistent, whether it's 7 a.m., 11 p.m., whatever time they come at you, or at least you know how to say, we're not having this conversation at 7 a.m. Come talk to me at a later time, right? When they can't piss you off, they stop attacking you. And you'd be shocked at how many people, once they've come back down, start asking legitimate questions. There's so many times where it starts up here, and I'm like, not going to engage. Whenever you relax, we can talk. And then they're like, okay, fine. Well, I'm just really mad that this. Thank you for using your words. Like a grown-up. Let's talk. And then we end up having a great talk, right? But again, this does not mean, it is not the same thing as giving them applause for bad thoughts and opinions, as rewarding things like racism and ugly things like that. You're not doing that. You're not rewarding them, but you're also not rewarding them by getting the reaction that they want out of you. This isn't you befriending people who aren't safe for you, or befriending people who have made it clear that they don't like people like you and they will do whatever it takes to make sure people like you don't have rights and freedoms, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, oh no, I'm in a scenario right now, in person, I cannot escape. How do I get out of this conversation? Or, how do I turn this conversation into something else? Sometimes it's an escape plan, sometimes it's a, no, I got the time. Lucky me, I've had plenty of time recently. Alright? Hate to see me coming. Hold on, sorry, take a deep breath. Speed doesn't matter, we talked about that. Throw them off by destroying their expectations. They've heard that we're mean, and we yell, and we name call, and we cut off the conversation whenever it's not going how we want, and we're sore losers, right? Whether it's Red Pill podcasts we're talking about, whether it's political stuff, whatever, opponents have heard, and so far it seems pretty true the way that people debate right now, is that, oh, I know, I say the one thing that gets under their skin and they blow up and then I get out of this conversation. Defy their expectation. And you will be shocked at how quickly they don't know what to say because they didn't prepare for the conversation to go that long. Right? They think, oh, I've been told and I've seen through my favorite content creators that once everything gets exploding, I get to say, well, I've got the moral high ground and you clearly don't know how to talk, so I'm mad at you. Unless you do know how to talk and you got the time. Right? Baby! Make them think you are so glad you brought that up today, right? It's like, oh, we're going to have this conversation, great, with my Wheaties, wonderful. There are ways to have these calm conversations and to defy their expectation, which becomes a way that confuses them and befuddles them. One of the best ways that I really like to, one, de-escalate the situation, but two, it gets my point across without having to speak one word of my own opinion the entire time, is I like to repeat back to people what they said to me verbatim. They come at me and they go, rah, 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 why this, and liberals that, and this and that, the other, blah, blah, blah. And I say, okay, before we move forward, let me just make sure I understand. You think verbatim, not with any kind of attitude, not making fun of them, just let me, I don't want to misquote you, you said this, because they get to hear what they sound like. And they don't like it. How strange! So then they go, no, what I meant was modified version of what they just said. You're like, oh, okay. So you mean this. And they hear it again, coming out of somebody else's mouth, and they're like, oh. No, and they might even throw out, no, you're just not understanding. It's giving an idiot, right? No, here's a third version of what I said. Sometimes it's a tweaked version, sometimes it's totally different. And you're like, okay, so just so I understand, you're not saying the first thing they said, you're saying the third thing they said. Rinse, repeat, because one of two things always happens. I'll say 99% of the time, because I'm sure there's going to be a time in the future it doesn't happen, but has yet to go differently. They either get so mad at how they sound that they go, clearly, you're just going to twist my words, so I'm not continuing this conversation. And you say, I was just repeating what you said. And they know it's true, and you know it's true, and they walk away, and you de-escalate the situation, and you didn't have to have a single opinion. Or, and this happens a lot, you're the first person who's ever let them talk uninterrupted. And they're a little bit thrown off. And it's going to stick in here what they heard you say they said. And they're a little bit disturbed. And they're going to say, oh, well, thanks for letting me talk. I appreciate it. And you're like, hey, no problem. You know, maybe they say, like, this is clearly going nowhere, so I think we should just end this conversation. And you're like, oh, bummer, okay, I was really going somewhere, but that's great. If you ever want to talk to me about this again in the future, you can, because they won't. And both times, you didn't have to reveal a single way that you feel about anything. You just showed them what they sound like. Now, you could say, this is what you sound like. You can show them and not tell them. And let me tell you, the quickest way to disturb somebody and make them go quiet is to tell them what they sound like. And to make them reflect. Because when they hear their idea come out of your mouth, they go, ugh. Ugh. Have you ever heard your own voice on a recording? Do that. Do that to somebody else. Is it a weapon? Maybe, but it's the best one I got, right? And that alone plants such a deep seed in so many people's minds that worst case scenario, they just stop saying heinous shit all over the place because they know what it sounds like. Maybe it doesn't change their opinion much. Maybe they're trying to figure out like a different way to convey this message, but they remember how that sounded hearing it said back to them, and at least they stay a little bit quieter about it. You know, they're not going to post quite as many little statuses for a while. Oh, what do they say? Humbled, I believe. That's what Gen Z calls it. It humbles them. But it's also better for you. I use that in times when I'm just not in the mood. Right? Like, it's early, haven't had my coffee, I'm on vacation, whatever. Right? Like, maybe I'm watching an emotional movie and now somebody wants to have, like, a conversation with me afterward. Who knows? You don't have to be ready all the time. There's this weird idea, and especially here in America, where for some reason, because maybe you're agnostic, or atheist, or you're something other than Christian, you owe an explanation to everyone around you on why that is. Which is really weird, because anybody else who says something is true is asked to explain that. So why in this instance, right? Like if I say that there's hydrogen and oxygen in the atmosphere, explain to me why that's not true, hater. It's like, why don't you explain why it is true? I was just sitting here. Threw your opinion on it, right? So, no, you don't owe everybody an explanation. No, you don't have to engage in these conversations. No, you absolutely don't. You can answer a question with a question. You cannot answer at all. But in the event, because we always do find ourselves in these conversations with, for whatever reason, you can't get out of the situation right away, or you can't avoid the situation entirely. That's what these kind of tools are meant for. You want to plant that seed, and you want to get the hell out of there, right? So, you also want to leave them with something once you've left that they remember. And that's that seed we're talking about. You don't want to, I won, ha ha, right? Fly away like the Wicked Witch. You don't want to do that. Because one, like we said, you'll never win. Two, you may not be ready and you may not like, have you ever had those moments where like hours later you're like, oh, I should have said this, I should have said that. It eliminates the opportunity for that to happen, right? Especially when you don't have to say anything, you can just ask questions, or you can just repeat back to them what they've said. Before I keep going, what questions do we have so far? Thoughts, comments, observations, maybe they disagree.
How did these conversations start? Did they start with you, or did you start it?
I never started. That took years of work on myself. It was not an easy road. I never started. Now, obviously, my entire shtick is being a debater and an atheist and a comedian. So like most people, they clock it. You know what I mean? Like very few people who are within my personal circle don't know that about me. So maybe they come to me because they want to fight or whatever. Or maybe they don't come to me as much anymore because they don't want to fight. I don't know. But usually, they come when you least expect it, right? It's at Thanksgiving. It's at the grocery store. You're at a friend's cookout, and They just have that couple friend who's just different and loud, and they just want to cause a scene everywhere they go. Maybe it's the neighbor. Maybe it's the HOA president. They will find you. If you're like, you know what, my life's goal is to never debate again, you will be confronted with so many arguments. It's like when you get a boyfriend and all the girls are like, ooh, oh, you're not single anymore, that's crazy, right? Just me, I don't know. Same thing, man. I think they see you at peace in it. I think they see a person minding their own business and they're like, but actually, I have thoughts. I think it's my short hair, to be honest. A lot fewer people ask my opinion when I have long hair. I don't know. But I never start, that's the thing. But it's kind of like how I don't know if you've ever heard those conversations around like weapons. Like, if you have a gun, don't be the first to draw. You know, if you have a knife, don't be the first to pull it. If you know what you're talking about, don't be the first to challenge people, right? Because one, it just makes you look like you don't know what you're talking about. Anytime somebody in a video goes, I know my rights, you know for a fact they don't know the rights, you know? Like, I know my rights, and I'm talking to shut the fuck up, right? I'm gonna be quiet. Does that answer your question? Yes.
I like what you said about asking them feedback what they said.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, I was talking to a dear friend of mine who has been drinking the mango Kool-Aid, and she told me that the Biden administration was trafficking children. And I was like, all right, hold on a second. Can you point me out where you got that from? It's a pretty big accusation. She said, what? I said that you just said Biden's administration trafficking children. I didn't say that. I didn't tell her you just said that. But she did exactly what you said, which she then backed down and said, well, it's the open border thing. Like, so I have never heard of a politician who actually does open border. Can you explain that for me? And it turned out it's just like some people being let in by Border Patrol to be processed when I finally watched it. And then one of the comments way down below said that. But what happened is she de-escalated herself from that. He's doing this. The Biden administration did this to this. And the reason she brought it with me is because she thought, because I didn't believe it, I was complicit. Because I voted for Biden. I voted for Harris. That's where the conversation got really, really intense.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a great example. And this works for all sorts of conversations, right? Obviously here, now, the most prevalent ones are going to be religious and political, but this works in relationships, in interpersonal relationships. I just got married last year, and the number of times, in order to keep from killing that man, I asked him a question. Like, for example, Vincent, we have Tupperware, right? The lids and the containers go together. We agree. Fantastic. So why do the lids go up there and the containers go down here? It doesn't make sense, does it? I'm glad we agree. But I've also caught him doing the same thing to me, and I'm like, don't you? Right? It works so much better. And it opens the opportunity for them to ask you questions. And then they're like, wow, great, now I get to talk. It's like, oh, so Sydney, where do you think it should go? I'm so glad you asked. I have a prime place that I think they should all go together. Right? Or, I don't know, I would love for you to take the lead on that. Right? This is a marriage counseling session? I don't know what's going on. What other questions do we have? If any. All right, cool, I'm going to keep going.
You mentioned avoiding appeals to authority. There was some word it doesn't matter who you read.
Yes.
Right? Because it's just an appeal to authority.
Yes.
So since the goal, as stated, was to plant a seed,
Yes.
what techniques have you found that support that goal?
To plant the seed?
Yes.
So, I think the best one that so far has never failed me is just asking them questions. Like, maybe you say to me, you're like, I just don't think that Whataburger belongs in Tennessee. And I don't feel like I have enough information on that, but he seems like he's really pissed off about it. So I'm like, oh, why don't you feel like it belongs in Tennessee?
It is way too salty.
Oh, okay. So are you saying like, are you saying that the brand doesn't belong here because they're salty, or are you saying if they became less salty, you would welcome them here? Like, what would your goal be in the end?
I feel like if they reduce their sodium content, they would be more akin to seaweed.
And I happen to think that low sodium is healthy as well. I'm so glad we agreed on something, Chad Harris. This guy's a nutcase. I'm gonna talk about this. Get me my water. I walk away eating a Whataburger. I'm like, oh, I'll take one for the team. Do you see what I'm saying? So like, something that I have to do with my nearest and dearest, unfortunately, is I have to do this on a regular basis. They're like, well, I just think this thing. And I say, well, something else I do is when I have an opinion, I say, what if someone were to say, because if I have that opinion, like, you know, but if I'm like, well, what if the general they had this question? They are always happy to answer that question because it's you and them against the general they, the problem, right? Whatever it is that's going on. I always frame my personal opinion like, I just heard this. I heard once that someone thinks you're right. I heard, what if? Let me play devil's advocate here. When I actually meet devil's advocate, it's like, human rights don't need devil's advocate. So I do that. When I know something's going to set them off, but I really want to know the answer to something, I say, what if, just for the bit, what if someone were to say this? They always respond to that. Whereas if I ask the same question from me, shut down. Argument, fight, but it's not me and you, it's us against the issue. And the issue is that you're a racist. It's you place the problem out here. What's harming us now, what's doing so much disservice, and what's stopping so much advancement is that we are blaming each other. And should we hold toxic things accountable? Yes. Is the way to do that to be like, you are the problem? Or is it to be like, this is a problem? So many of my political and social arguments have devolved in, we both want children to be safe. Something we agree on. We both think that the children should have food. Great. Something we agree on. We both think that you should be allowed to go to church if you want. Okay, wow. So many things we agree on. When in the past it used to be, well, you this, well, you that. Let's talk about where our methodologies differ. How do you plan to feed the children? Oh, here's a question I have about your method to feed these children. Do you mind if I share with you my method on how to feed the children? And then you have a conversation. Now, sometimes it's hard. You will meet people where you're like, I don't agree with the daggone thing this person's saying. Right? I cannot even pretend. And that's when you do the whole, what if these other people who you and I do not get along with, these generalized and invisible people, what if they said this? And that's where you take that approach. It is hard. It is hard. Especially when you're talking to the people you care about the most, about the things you care about the most. It is hard, it is not easy. But the more often you do it, the easier it will get. And also, you have an opportunity to throw little, lighthearted comments in there, right? Little, jokes, little digs that don't at all devalue the conversation that you're talking about. Like my dad and I were having this heated exchange, and I finally said, well, you know what? I color match my foundation a lot better than he does, right? And he's like, I never paid attention to his foundation. And I said, yes, you do, because you looked me in the eye and you said, less is more, Sydney. So why does he get to wear garish makeup and you don't say a word and you pretend to be blind to it? Like, we were talking about makeup, but we weren't talking about makeup, right? But I know you know what foundation is because you have a lot to say about mine. It's funny, but it's still true. And it's still an example of how I'm winning. am. I'm not, right? And now, sometimes he'll call me when he's got a problem. And I think that is kind of neat because, God, I'm so mad. I'm so mad. And I told him to his face, I'm never going to step into a Mexican restaurant with you again as long as I live. You don't get to vote that way and then, tacos. It's like, no, not my friends. No, you don't. But if you're feeling bad, you can come talk to me. And you know that the last thing I'll ever say is, I told you so. I'll probably just ask him, like, wow, how do you feel about that? What do you think the next step is? Like, how are you going to explain that? Like, what do you think you're going to do from here on out? That's how we change. It takes forever. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of anger. There have been times where I've been like, okay, have a great day. And then I throw the phone and just like kick it and just like gone for a run. Because I knew if I put that energy into the conversation, I was going to undo so much work that I've been trying to do. It's not easy. And again, I'm not saying platform bad people. I'm not saying downplay how bad things are that they think if they're bad. I'm not saying if somebody is factually incorrect, you just let them be. I'm saying highlight those things in a way that allows you your foot in the door. At least just a little. You gotta keep that foot in the door because if that door closes, what are we gonna do? Right? If we can't even talk, how the hell are we going to change anything? How are we going to progress if we can't even get the door open? Questions so far? Thoughts, comments, ideas? All right, cool. Sure, why not? I like a silly question. Back to my hair, all right? Don't hurt my feelings. Huh? I had long red hair. I had really long red hair. Long story short, tried to follow a YouTube tutorial, messed up so bad I had to shave my head. And that's why I have a pixie cut. I also had to tell my neighbors to stop telling me like really nice things. Like, we're so glad you're still with us. Like, it's okay. I have decided to like, listen, it's not. Those are also the days that YouTube calls when I was hot. Back in the day, when I had long hair. I've noticed actually that people really do pay a lot more attention to what I'm saying now that I have short hair, which is very interesting. And when I had a shaved head, that's probably when I got confronted the most with just like unsolicited arguments. It was so interesting. Women I'd never talked to before would either come up and be like, oh my God, I love it, or they'd be like, you're so great. It's like, just call me ugly. Just say that I'm ugly. Or like aggression. It was the most fun I'd ever had with a haircut, but it was the most like socially uncomfortable I'd ever felt. How am I doing on time, Gary?
Fabulous.
Perfect. So that could be one of the reasons why I get confronted with a lot more stuff than most people do, because I've got an unconventional haircut. You know, there's a lot of people in this country who think women should have long hair and wear long dresses and stay, status quo and blah, blah, blah. Too much makeup, yada, yada, yada. You could go on and on, right? But I definitely noticed like a social shift, absolutely. When you don't look the way that like conventionally you should. Also, where you live tends to matter. Like I've lived in Chicago, I've lived in Phoenix, I've lived in Tennessee, I've lived in Arkansas. And people in Phoenix, like I am a ghost. Like they're like whatever. But like when I'm here in Tennessee or when I'm back home in Arkansas, that's where it's like side-eye, right? Like, or like oh, but you're growing it out for your wedding, right? When are you going to grow that out? That's my favorite, is when you get a new haircut. People go, oh, so when are you going to start growing it out? It's like, never, now. I was going to start yesterday, but now I'm just for the bit. I'm just not going to. But the most important thing, I think, that I'll wrap up with is when it's over and done with, the conversation, the relationship. Sometimes these things do end relationships, for better or for worse. Make the goal to leave them with something to think about. When I was in college, I identified as a Republican, conservative Christian. And then I joined debate. And I was forced to do research and argue topics that I didn't even get to pick. I didn't even get to pick what side I was on. And that was the first introduction to, I have to explain myself or I lose. And then I also attribute so much of who I am today as a person to people who took the time. They took the time when I said the thing that in my hometown I got praised for. I'm trying to think of one of the things I used to say. I don't even remember. I was one of those, you ask me why I feel that way, and I say, well, I've got stuff to do. I don't have time. You should look it up. When I just didn't know what I was talking about. I was just parroting what I'd heard. But when people that I really cared about respected me, I just, why do you think that?
Like a shit thing, right?
Right? Like you have like an existential crisis. You're like, why do I think that? Right? Again, that first conversation, I got a little bit pissed at those people and I was a little bit upset. But I thought more and more about how these kind people don't agree with me. These people I really, really like and I really respect and they do everything that I want to do, they don't agree with me. And they're just gonna tell me. They smile, they laugh, and they go, oh really? Why is that? And then I'll be sarcastic. But I also don't want to get that response out of anyone ever again. Like I'll laugh and I'll, interesting, why? Right? And so if we can be those people to as many people as possible without putting ourselves in danger, without platforming bad people, without platforming bad ideas, without lying to make people comfortable, keeping the peace is like swear words to me. When you ask me to keep the peace, I'm not the one who disturbed it in the first place. Like, I didn't do that. That, I think, will go so far. And it takes time, like anything else, like plants, like anything else. It takes time. But eventually, you will see, at some point, the changes being made. Whether or not you're ever credited for it, you're not going to be. Which is why I like to go back and actually have those people on my podcast and be like, first of all, I want to thank you for that thing you said to me in 2009 or whatever. You're never going to be credited for it. You're never going to see it. Probably in the people that you plant that seed in, but you'll see it as you surround yourself with more people who are willing to plant seeds, willing to accept seeds, willing to nurture those things. And I honestly think that will do so much for progress. And that's all I got. Thanks, everybody.